It's a Gundam. He's just a piece of crap.
As a former leftist, considering they kicked me out for having a sense of humor, I can wholeheartedly say I am sick of progressives finding issues where there are none. There was a time when a gamer's worst enemy was the conservative Christian in the long ago. Now our worst enemies are eggless, rapidly aging millennial women that have no kids and no lives. They are often accompanied by a man that oozes weakness from every pore of his body. That you can tell, this man has never had sex with a woman under 170 pounds his entire life. And he's worse for the wear for it.
I'm telling you, that boy's a genius. Tell it!
What's wrong with women's dialogue in video games?
Get ready for another first world problem.
So, we are interested in patterns. Tropes, stereotypes, biases in game mechanics, in worlds, in characters, in stories. Some of those patterns are things that players notice and complain about or praise online, and others kind of fly beyond the radar, but all of them we think affect their experience when they play games. We're here because all of our research is designed to help very creative people like you make games for us to play, rather selfishly. We want to help you make the kinds of games you want to play, whether that's games with better gender representation, games that enhance player agency.
Games with better gender representation. That's the heart of the issue here. This long video is nothing more than telling us women don't talk enough in video games. They've clearly never played Battlefield 6, where the male characters have female voices. All I hear are gunshots and yapping.
Explosive ready!
Combat, 85% of active duty soldiers are men. And though there are many women serving in the armed services, fewer than 8% profess a desire to engage in combat.
I need a medic! Oh, will someone please stop him?
Want to design. And we're going to suggest how some of these patterns can be subverted or averted. Now, our work involves designing a bunch of tools and doing a bunch of research that helps answer a whole range of questions on different topics. But today we're focusing on just one, gender representation in dialogue.
I'd buy that for $1.
Time to sell your useless tool to developers that will help ensure that they won't make any sales themselves. Why on earth is someone doing sign language? Do deaf people really care about this as an issue in their day?
We know that roughly half of people who play video games are women, and that women and gender minority people have a rough time in the gaming community.
She means the alphabet people. Most real women play phone games or romance dating simulator games and then they go crazy, and dude, there's a whole nuttiness there.
想要我靠多近？
很近很近。
下次是不是轮到你来靠近我？
Currently popular among Chinese women are online games called otome games, meaning maiden games, which encourage female players to enjoy romance with virtual male characters.
But anyway, the rest of the people that, and I quote, identify as women, just want to see more ugly humans and characters that reflect them. And doing these things to appease that small audience is a good way to kill a franchise. Ask Dragon Age Veilguard.
Cinematics and moving, nuanced character writing.
Oh, I'm non-binary. What does that mean?
Are the wings on which this triumphant dragon soars. Watch the wings! Pulling out all the stops in a whirlwind tour of Northern Thedas, and capping it with a terrific finale that's built on memorably tough choices and consequences. If we never get another Dragon Age, at least it got to go out on a high note.
A little bit of light on this, we did a survey in collaboration with Swedish game company Undone Games and surveyed 1,000 people who identify as women who play mobile games, and most of them also play games on PC and console.
See, I rest my case. Only 1,000 people bothered to do this, so you know it's a bunch of no-lifers who gave this stupid survey the time of day. Listen, I can't even be bothered to do YouTube's surveys.
Doing on a daily basis. But just under a third reported feeling guilty about taking time to play. Now, what was particularly surprising for us is that guilt or shame or keeping secrets for fear of judgment from family and friends about your play didn't correlate with playing less. So there's a whole bunch of people out there who are playing quite a lot of games and feeling really bad about it.
I should have known she would try to extrapolate 1,000 people filling out this stupid survey to being a much larger number than it actually is. In her mind, these 1,000 people reflect the opinions of millions of, and this tool that they're making is really going to help something, rather than admitting to herself and her colleague that this is absolutely worthless and a waste of time.
Perhaps most shockingly, you're more likely to keep it a secret if you're proud of your gaming achievements as a woman. So we think this and the whole lot of data that we got off the back of this survey is indicative that many women, not all women, but many women, feel that gaming isn't for them, even when they really love doing it. That it's not designed for them, that it's not the sort of thing they should identify with, or not a subject that they can bond with other people over. But that we might be able to make some headway by making game worlds more inviting for women players.
And so, can you imagine how many lives this is going to be saving?
A few years ago, a study was done of how much women speak in Disney films. So in 1950, Cinderella came out, and 60% of the words in that film are spoken by women characters. Roughly 10 years later, Sleeping Beauty came out, and despite the main character spending most of her time asleep, 71% of the dialogue in that film is spoken by women. Let's fast forward to the 2010s, the fry pan wielding, action-oriented, strong Disney princesses. In Tangled, only 52% of the dialogue is spoken by women. Forward to Frozen, which has two leading ladies, 41% of the dialogue is spoken by women.
Instead of this woman realizing that storytelling and writing deteriorated massively over the course of decades isn't indicative of some form of misogyny, but the evident cognitive decline of our culture and media as a whole. But I guess we could just sit there and pretend that women are somehow being silenced.
Of dialogue from 60 role-playing games published over the last 30 years. It's got now more than 13,000 characters, 11 million words of dialogue, and it's growing all the time. Each line of dialogue is mapped onto who's speaking and it's positioned in the dialogue tree. And we've spent a long time cleaning and fixing this data. So it now represents the biggest resource for studying dialogue in games. We made a game as well that you can play to learn more about this corpus. We're also building tools to help visualize and explore this data. So here's some of the dialogue tree from Baldur's Gate 3.
Sell us more of your AI slopware. Instead of studying dialogue based on gender, why not focus on better storytelling? Or, horror of horrors, hire someone you think might be problematic to work on stories. As Nietzsche said, one must have chaos in their soul to give birth to stars. And frankly, the last few years of being politically correct has created the most stale, homogenous entertainment ever that no one's interested in. That's why all of these streamers are becoming popular. They realize the worse they are as human beings, the more interested people are in them, because it seems like they actually have a personality.
I'm amazed of his genius.
So, we can start by asking, what percentage of dialogue is spoken by women? Do you want to do a poll?
Yeah. Right, we'll start the bidding. Put your hand up if you think at least 10% of the dialogue is spoken by women. At least 20%. At least 30%, or some hand, at least 40%, at least 50%. Any higher, 50% higher, 60%, 70%. No, it's gone down and bidding has ended. Okay.
You're spot on, really. So, if we count all the words of dialogue in the corpus, roughly 2/3, 65%, are spoken by characters who players would deem to be men. Roughly 30%, and almost every hand was up at either 30 or 40%, is spoken by women.
Wow, what a waste. The poor children.
This just makes sense to me. Gaming is a male-dominated hobby, any way you slice it. Let me put it to you in a way that a leftist could understand. Despite the popularity of drag in the modern age, and the number of gay men wearing makeup these days like women, You don't see Sephora abandoning women to focus on the much smaller gay male demographic. The same with video games. It's not really rocket science.
Older games are at the top, newer games are at the bottom. So the first thing to notice is just how few games, spoiler 1, crosses that 50% mark. That is, only one of these games has more than 50% of dialogue spoken by women. Now that includes Final Fantasy X2, which has 3 female protagonists.
Final Fantasy is a rite of passage for the lonely nerd male growing up. Even the title says it all, Final Fantasy. Because you need to escape reality by going to your Final Fantasy. By the way, Final Fantasy X2, hot wet garbage.
Recently, Final Fantasy 15, all-boy party, less than 25% of dialogue in that game is spoken by women. Now, these aren't meant to be criticisms of the individual games. Obviously, not all games need to have equal representation. We might absolutely have stories that center men, and that seems totally right. The point is the pattern, right? And how few the exceptions are. So the exception in this case is a sequel of a sequel, Lightning Returns, which doesn't have a huge amount of dialogue, but it just pips the 50% mark.
People like this need to be gatekept from hobbies at all costs. I fail to see what purpose this could possibly serve other than to make a game even more ass than it was, if anyone's even willing to listen to this.
But you can see here the difference between Horizon Zero Dawn, female-led game, with just under 50% female dialogue, through to Horizon Forbidden West. But at the current rate, it will still take about a decade, if not longer, to get to a point where, on average, we've got gender parity.
Hooray! Horizon broke the mold with more female dialogue. I played both Horizon Zero Dawn and Forbidden West. I didn't notice and didn't care. To pay attention to such things, you'd have to be a moral busybody. People play games to escape reality. I'm fighting with my insurance company currently, so when I get mad, I play Battlefield 6 and blow things up. I don't sit there and wonder about the gender disparity between female skins that you could purchase, which personally I feel there's too many. It's unrealistic. I mean, for God's sakes, they just released some new skins and it's like black women with cornrows and dreads that are fighting the invading forces that are of undiscriminate location because they don't want to offend any countries because everyone's so gay now.
Can players avoid this bias by making choices doing the dialogue tree? So for example, here's a dialogue tree from Final Fantasy VII. If you were to take the left-hand path, then you would end up with 16 words of female dialogue and 7 words of male dialogue. If you were to take the right-hand path, you'd end up with slightly more words of male dialogue. So what's the pattern over all of the games? I think we'll just skip on to the next one. So we imagine this as a dialogue challenge. We created a little computational agent that knows the whole dialogue tree structure and asked it to make choices to maximize the dialogue so that there's more female dialogue than male dialogue.
This is such a first world problem. Western society spends so much energy telling us how strong and powerful women are while simultaneously telling us that they're completely helpless. Women are somehow second-class citizens even in video games. They didn't speak enough for these two assholes.
Can we just fix this by giving women more lines? Well, I think probably if I asked this to any one of you out in the demo hall, you'd go, no.
I'm so glad that people like this are now getting less work in the wake of Sweet Baby. If activists like this are consultants on a game, I want to make sure that I never buy it or see it. And this is why Sweet Baby Detected was so popular. No one wants this. We just want to play the video game and enjoy ourselves. Not have like an HR meeting for our playtime before we have to go to bed, wake up and go to work and then actually deal with HR in reality.
This is Jessie from the original Final Fantasy VII. In the original game, she's given 32 lines of dialogue, and we can split up what her dialogue's doing. So about a quarter of it is her showing off her technical expertise as an explosives expert, about a quarter of it is her teaching the player how to play the game, and about half is her revealing her personality. Now, in the remake, the first Final Fantasy VII installment of the remake, she's given almost 10 times as many lines of dialogue. That sounds like a great thing, right? But now here's the split. So she now spends only 10% of her available words showing off her expertise, and 82% of her dialogue revealing her personality, much of which consists of her flirting with Cloud. Now, flirting is not a bad thing, right? But when this becomes a pattern, when it's reflective of the narrow range of roles that women characters are allowed to play, we might think that there's some, work to be done.
Okay, this is just like a complete omission that these two know all about video games. Of course, the female character is hitting on Cloud because Final Fantasy VII Remake is a fan service game for people that are sexually attracted to all the characters in the game. This happened after Advent Children dropped. When that hit, Final Fantasy went from being one of the greatest RPGs of all time to just being gooner bait, essentially, for like horny weebs for the last decade, bro.
Stardew Valley. Now, in terms of just sheer balance, this game's pretty even, right? Just over half of the dialogue is spoken by men, just under half is spoken by women. But there are some differences in the dialogue that would be very hard to notice just by playing the game, because there are some NPCs that say different things to you depending on the gender of the player character. So, for example, if you're a man, you're offered ale, and if you're a woman, it's wine. If you're a man, it's creamy pasta. If you're a woman, it's salad. If you're a man, you're described as full of energy. You actually get quite a lot of different compliments if you're a man in the game. If you're a woman, you're always beautiful. If you're a man, people show concern that you spent too much time in the sun. If you're a woman, you've got a lovely tan. And here's my favorite example. If you're a man, you seem to really know your way around a joystick, huh? I guess that makes sense. If you're a woman, I didn't think you'd know how to work a joystick so well, but it seems you're experienced.
I know they're not sitting here having a problem with Stardew Valley. It's meant to be funny. They have lost the plot.
What sort of ambient dialogue NPCs are making in the Mass Effect trilogy. We coded it into the kinds of things they're talking about, from more public stuff like current events to more private stuff like romance. Just like in Daggerfall, when two women are talking to each other, they're quite likely to talk about family and romance. But when two men are talking to each other, they're mainly talking about current events, military and work. These things are sort of coded as more masculine. So there's a bias in the way that people are presenting their gender through the topics that they're talking about.
Women interested in current events outside of celebrity gossip BS are activists or social media wannabe pundits. I don't know how many women I've interacted with in my life or dated outside of social media that only cared about celebrity crushes doing a TV show or movie. Their dating lives is what they wanted to talk about, their favorite music, and their skincare routines. I'm not even joking, dude. They don't give a shit about the government. They don't care about local legislation or anything outside of themselves.
That's toxic. That's toxic. That's toxic. That's toxic.
We find patterns that don't have to do with dialogue and that really surprise us. So we were doing some research on gender and violence, and we extracted just over 1,000 NPCs from the MMORPG Final Fantasy XIV. So 1,000 NPCs related to main scenario quests. And what we found is that men were statistically significantly more likely to carry weapons than women. There's an even more striking finding. And that's there's a variable in the game data that controls bust size and hip size of characters. And to give you the really short version, the bigger your boobs, the less likely you are to carry a weapon.
Based.
Listen, it's Final Fantasy. Yet again, it's in the title. Fantasy. It's a Japanese JRPG where you fight goblins, ghosts, demons, ghouls, and you're an elf person. There's cat girls, there's little teddy bear people, and it's wildly popular. This sounds par for the course with JRPGs. And I can say wholeheartedly, every woman I've ever known with big honkers did not carry a weapon. Hell, they didn't even learn how to throw a jab.
To wrap up, what's going wrong with women's dialogue in video games? Well, it's not that each individual woman isn't given enough dialogue. Rather, there just aren't enough women speaking. When they speak, as we've seen, they have a narrow range of things to say. And there are
As we've seen, they have a narrow range of things to say.
But all the background characters, the characters that you can speak to, the characters that you overhear in the background, right? Merchants, all of them. And everyone is more likely to speak to a man.
I played Fallout 4 on my second modded run, and during that playthrough as a female character, not once did the NPCs leave me the hell alone when it came to the stupid quest. There's complete gender parity. I don't know what they're talking about.
The fact that these patterns hold so strongly across the industry, across different games from different countries, across games across the decades, we think is really striking. If you only take one thing from this talk when you're writing, it's that, yeah, sure, women do generally speak less than men. And it really does matter what they say and who they say it to. But if you want women to speak more, you have to add more of them. That's the number one thing.
Any developer dumb enough to listen to these two people with this nothing burger of a PowerPoint deserve to be replaced by AI. At this stage of the game, it's time to put out stuff gamers want to play, because developers are not safe from the machine onslaught that's coming. Lord knows we are one sweaty Asian and an AI program away from the gaming industry being tilted on its head. The days of showing up and trying to lecture us about gender, sexuality, and all this other stuff, it's over. You better get with the program, sunshine, or you're out the door. So if you're thinking about gender parity, I suggest you learn how to make a creamy iced latte, because that's where you're headed.
Thank you both so much. That was such an interesting talk. I guess I just wanted to ask a question about how exactly you built this corpus. Like, how do you go about getting all of these pieces of dialogues? Do companies provide them directly to you? And then also, like, in terms of processing the data, like, do you get any help in terms of, like, tags already attached to the dialogue already, or are you trying to, like, figure this out from what you're provided? Yeah, thank you.
That's a great question. And yeah, so we've been working together. Some of the data comes from game data that we sort of hacked out. Some of the data comes from fan transcripts, or wherever we can sort of get this. And so
they didn't even play any of the games they're talking about, which is why they thought Stardew Valley had really weird issues with dialogue.
The answer to this might be depressing, but in your research, have you come across, creators or studios or genres even, which do this well, where there are varied topics of conversation, where men and women get equal billing, where there is a good balance of male and female characters, and maybe also some non-binary representation as well? Like, are there good outliers that you've encountered? Thank you.
It's a good question. There are games that do each of these things well. I'm yet to find that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And if you think you have that game, tell me. I think we've yet to find a game that we feel like does all of those things.
And issues completely, and the game flopped so hard it killed the IP. These activists cry out loud for games to be made for 2% of the population. And then when it crashes and burns, they just call everybody a bigot.
Yeah, so you started the presentation by saying that female players feel guilty about playing and they are not as proud of their achievements. So how does this relate to their underrepresentation in dialogue?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So you might think of it as, we know that it's kind of too big a question to answer quickly, so I'm going to give you an answer that's going to sound a bit reductive, but forgive me and we can have the longer version. We know that players want diversity to be better, right? And we also know that a whole bunch of women already play video games, and yet many of them report not feeling great about it, not feeling served by the game, perhaps not seeing people like them in the game.
Women need to see themselves in a game literally, not figuratively. And what I mean by that is men can like a character that looks nothing like them, but he can relate to this person. There might be one quality in this character that he says, this reminds me of it, this is understandable. Women aren't built that way on average.
I don't think, obviously it's a much bigger problem. We need some kind of improvements in the industry. We need improvements in marketing. We need improvements in game discourse online, for God, But we think that, this is a good start. That being able to see women speak confidently and thoughtfully in a whole different range of roles can only be a good thing in terms of, challenging the view that games aren't really for them.
Guess they didn't see the modern games in the last 10 to 15 years.
The Astrogators games are shot!
Get a hold of yourself. You're an Earth Directorate agent.
Affirmative, Commander.
If all you ever see in games is, you know, women in latex bikinis, then you might not feel great about spending a lot of time doing that.
What AAA game features women in latex bikinis that somehow alienate other women? The only game I can think of that is Stellar Blade. So basically, one game in God knows how many years since Bayonetta, or maybe Nier Automata, that had very sexy female characters and outfits. That's 3 that I can think of in the last 10 to 15 years. But obviously this woman is acting as if every game has that. On top of that, research has shown that women would rather play an attractive, sexually objectified female character than an ugly one. That's just the way it is. These people are hacks. Get them off my screen. This is a waste of time.